One of the things I find intriguing about the Modoc War is how little the landscape has changed in 150 years. Pound for pound, this was one of the United States' most expensive wars, fought to bring a 150-strong band back onto their reservation. Most of the important sites can be visited in a single day. But there's one elusive spot I've always wanted to document: the cave along Willow Creek where Captain Jack, the Modoc leader, finally surrendered. If the more famous landmarks haven't changed much, this place must be pristine. And at the time, February seemed as good a month as any to go there.
Well, it is snowing in Klamath Falls right now. So our plan is we're going to try to get up to where Captain Jack surrendered to U.S. forces. The people I've talked to who gave me directions have said that it's going to be muddy and snowy and nasty up there, but we're going to see if we can make it happen.
We didn't. After getting to the creek, a snowstorm set in, and we were forced to turn back before we found the cave.
When Captain Jack came here in late May 1873, it was obviously under very different weather conditions. But this is just a good reminder of how inhospitable and challenging Northern California weather can be.
And so, when the seasons changed, I came back, this time with Papa's story out west, to finally reach Captain Jack's cave.
So we're here at Gillum's camp on the west side of the stronghold, and this is where the majority of the U.S. Army had their presence during the Modoc War. It has not changed much in 150 years.
Gillum's camp served as the main U.S. Army base for the longest phase of the war. The Army attempted to storm the Modoc position, commonly called the Stronghold, but the attempt ended in disaster. A stalemate and weeks of negotiations followed.
So the government was willing to negotiate with the Modoc, and public sentiment broadly favored the Modoc cause. I mean, all they were asking for is a little bit of land in the middle of nowhere, so who cares? Give it to them. But Captain Jack did one thing that the Army and the government would find unforgivable, and it happened right here.
On April 11th, 1873, Captain Jack abruptly ended peace talks by shooting and killing the commanding officer, Brigadier General Edward Canby. Other Modoc warriors attacked the rest of the commission. Overnight, the public mood towards the Modoc cause shifted from ambivalence to vengeance. Captain Jack was now a marked man.
So this is Captain Jack's cave. This is where he stayed in the stronghold for about 4 months. And this rock in front of the cave, this was where men would get on the rock in front of the other warriors and give speeches, decide what course of action the tribe should take. And this is where, during one of those meetings, Captain Jack got called out. They threw some women's clothing on him and basically called him a coward. And as a leader of men, as a leader of Modoc tribe, Captain Jack couldn't let that go. So he agreed to kill the peace commissioners, and he ended up shooting and killing General Canby himself. And with that done, Army wasn't going to let that go. So that sealed Captain Jack's fate.
Using artillery, the Army was finally able to dislodge the Modoc from the stronghold. Even still, the Modoc raided and defeated U.S. forces until a defeat near Soras Lake created a bitter fracture among the Modoc leadership. Half the Modoc went west and eventually surrendered to the Army. Captain Jack's band went east and disappeared toward Willow Creek. To find where he went, I'm going to need some help. Fortunately, a few locals have given me some guidance. So getting to Willow Creek is a whole lot different than a lot of the other sites in the Modoc War. It's off the beaten path. So the directions that I got, I have to go down Highway 139, and then I have to turn left on an old sheep herder's grave, which is right here. Died 1911. So we're on the right track. Representatives for the local Modoc tribe declined to be interviewed for this project, but they, along with the locals I spoke with, had the same attitude. To the people who live around here, this is a special place. Nobody wants Willow Creek to become a tourist trap, which I respect, but based on how tough it is to get there, I don't think they have too much to worry about. Pops and I followed the directions, turning when we reached specified latitudes. The country appears flat and rugged, pocked with volcanic rocks and trees. Good grazing land. We go on, and just when you think you're lost, you see a tree line, and just beyond it, the lip of a canyon. Willow Creek. Time to dismount. A century and a half ago, the cavalry troopers who pursued Captain Jack were guided by scouts from the Warm Springs Reservation. It wasn't hard to find Captain Jack's trail. The scouts knew it by the small footprints left by his young daughter. The best description we have of Captain Jack's surrender area comes to us from Captain David Perry, 1st U.S. Cavalry. Captain Perry thought that Captain Jack might try to make his way back to the stronghold, and so, guided by scouts, he moved to intercept him. In Perry's words, "About the time that these tracks were reported, we were marching parallel to a deep gorge that lay on our right and impassable for animals except at a few crossings, and coming upon one of these, directed Trimble to cross to the opposite bank. Soon after, my scouts sent me word that the tracks led into the ravine. I then deployed my company under my lieutenant and went ahead with my interpreter and found that the ravine turned to a sharp angle to the left. I had reached the bank and stood on a ledge projecting well out, watching my scouts who had crossed and were intently discussing some signs they had discovered, when one of them suddenly ran back and said they had found squaw tracks that had gone out there and thence ran back to the ravine. Probably had seen Trimble. Just at this time, I saw on the opposite bank of the ravine, and about 100 yards to my left, an Indian dog suddenly appear at the top of the ravine, and just as suddenly an arm appeared and snatched the dog out of sight. I then knew that the coveted prize was mine. Jack and his family were secreted in a little cave near the top of the ravine, and within point-blank range of the ledge on which I stood." This area of Willow Creek seems to fit Perry's description. Time to throw up the bird. As I scan the lip of the canyon with a UAV, I suddenly see it. A small cave just below the canyon's rim and across from a prominent projection on the other side of the creek. This has to be it. And after a few minutes of hiking, we finally reach Captain Jack's cave. It's an eerie feeling, setting foot in a place like this. Impossible not to feel a connection. The cave itself is scarcely bigger than a van. If you didn't know it was there, you'd never look for it.
In the 60s, the chief naturalist in the area investigated this area to see where exactly the cave was that Captain Jack had surrendered at. And he wrote, "The remoteness of this area, with its lush vegetation and plentiful water supply, contrasts dramatically with the general semi-arid region above the canyon floor. With many natural resources available, Captain Jack could have lived here indefinitely had he not been tracked down by his own people. It is doubtful that the Army could have ever found him in this remote country." Well, I really hope you enjoyed that look at Willow Creek. If you got something out of it, feel free to leave a comment on this video. Tell me what your thoughts are. And don't forget to like it and subscribe to The Story Out West so you can see more stories like this. Thank you.